yeah, let's be for real, you probably will not be old money if you weren't born old money, but that doesn't mean that you can't be wealthy. Hey there, my handsome and pretty little Cobras, and welcome back to the Cobra's nest. So today's video is going to be a personal finance video, and it is consumerism is keeping you poor. I got 5 things that I want to talk about because you guys know I'm passionate about being good with your money. So without further ado, let's just get into the video. Let's get it, let's go. Woo! Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is the net worth of millionaires. So I read the book, The Millionaire Next Door, and I highly recommend it for anybody who's like thinking of getting their finances together. It's a really good book. I also recommend Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I think The Millionaire Next Door does a really good job of kind of looking at actual real life data when it comes to people who have high net worths. And instead of like having this idea in one's mind about what millionaires are like, I think usually when people think of a millionaire, they think of like the few billionaires that we have, like Elon Musk, and maybe the lavish lifestyle that they have. But actually, when it comes to millionaires, most millionaires only have like $1 million, and it's actually done through the most boring way possible, which is like saving and investing. You don't have to take my word for it. You can definitely check out the book. I have some screenshots here of the net worth of most millionaires and the kind of wealth that they have. I think that especially with TikTok, this whole trend of the old money aesthetic as like the pinnacle of wealth, and I think that kind of stops people and kind of robs people from building wealth because they're like, oh, I'm not old money. Oh, I don't have a trust fund. I'm not a Nebo baby. There's no hope for me. And I think that's just so heartbreaking because, yeah, let's be for real. You probably will not be old money if you weren't born old money, but that doesn't mean that you can't be wealthy, or at least, you know, rich. And there is actually a definition difference between rich and wealthy. Rich is like based on your income, and wealth is on like actually how much money you have. So it's actually better to be wealthy because that means like actual money in the bank versus rich. You could have a high net worth, but if every month you blow through it and you have no savings, you're technically not wealthy, just rich, but you don't actually have any savings. But yeah, when it comes to the old money, I think a lot of people think about like the royal family or like generational old money. Royal family aside, a lot of generational wealth usually dies by the 3rd gen, which is pretty interesting. I think it's the ones that did the railroad and it all just dried up. So it's like by the 3rd generation, like there was no money left. If you were hoping that that was going to be your financial plan, probably not the greatest plan, because that one kind of involved you being born into it. So if you weren't born into generational wealth, then like not a very intelligent way to do things. It's actually better to just look at the actual stats. So according to the stats, most people who are wealthy in their own life actually got there themselves. So that is really encouraging. I didn't know that. I actually had that other thought process that's like rich people are rich people and poor people are poor people, and like that's that. But it's actually not. A lot of people become rich by being good with their money. Surprise. And I think that's kind of interesting because if we look at the second point, the average consumer debt in Canada, because I live in Canada, I'm just going to look at Canadian numbers. Here it is, 21K of consumer debt. Consumer debt is different from student loans. Consumer debt is bankruptable versus student loans are not. So we're not going to talk about that. Although the average student loan is this in Canada. Student loans is something you cannot bankrupt. Even if, you know, everything went to hell, you still got to pay back your student loans. Consumer debt, on the other hand, that's referring to anything that is not a student loan. So this could be like, generally speaking, we think of like people's shoppings, but sometimes consumer debt, because I was curious and I did look into it, consumer debt can also include like somebody losing a job and they're using their credit card and credit card churning to keep themselves afloat. So that is also part of consumer debt, you know, trying to keep the lights on. So obviously I don't want to say all consumer debt was like you got there because they couldn't get their finances together. It's just like sometimes life happens, emergencies happen, and credit card is there to kind of help buy you time till you get back on your feet, which is like really unfortunate because once you start like racking up the interest, it's so hard to get from underneath that because the interest rates are just so high on these credit cards. I've heard they're like between like 18% to like 21%. It's a lot. It's just kind of like snowball effect in the wrong direction. So I think it's best to consider getting an emergency fund. It's not sexy and I don't think anyone wants to like think about that, but I think Dave Ramsey does it really good by saying like you should have an emergency fund. Emergency funds, it's just kind of like, it's not something to dip into, but it's something to have there in case something should happen. If something should happen, like you have that safety net, even like a month or two. Just knowing you can buy yourself some time is like a godsend, because when things are not going well, money there is really going to comfort you in the way that like not having money will, because then you have to turn to credit cards to like help bail you out, and you really don't want to be incurring all that interest. The third thing is getting educated, and I'm actually not talking about degrees because I think that the way that the cost of degrees have been going is just getting exploitative. Like it's absolutely insane. I had a student loan of $70K and it took me 4 years to pay it off, and that was not a fun experience. I didn't even end up using it. I am not even a dentist, but that is besides the point. Actually, there's a stat that I remember reading that actually most people don't don't even end up using the university degree for what it's intended. It's supposed to just show your future employer that you're a good employee because, like, look, you were able to complete your work in the designated time frame. But what I refer to getting educated is kind of like reading books. I feel like, especially as a teacher, and I see like my students, reading is really unpopular with the current gen. Like, I already thought it wasn't popular when I was a kid. It's completely, I think, like non-existent in most children's lives nowadays. I don't think anyone reads anymore. Maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but it is definitely quite unfortunate. I don't think reading is as important as it used to be with technology taking the forefront, which is a pity. But regardless, I still think though, if you are younger than me, if like you're in your 20s, I think it is really important to get educated in the sense of like read some books of people who are successful or have a life that you would like to live, in terms of getting some personal finance advice. Not all personal finance advice is the greatest, but like for the most part, it's better than nothing. I think some good books to read that I personally really enjoyed. I liked Rich Dad Poor Dad. I know it has a lot of controversies in it, but just take it with a grain of salt. Like, just like don't be bad with money. Doing a business, real estate, stocks, investing, I think it's good for that. Just kind of dip your feet into it if you've like never been exposed to that. Another good one is The Psychology of Money, The Millionaire Next Door. And I think in terms of blogs, if you don't like reading an actual book, I think another good one is Mr. Money Mustache. That one's pretty good too. If you prefer like reading something on Kindle or an iPad, you could definitely check out his blog. He does a fantastic job as an engineer running the numbers if you don't really want to like look at the emotional aspect of personal finance. All right, and the fourth point, so saving and investing. The most boring part of this, I've watched countless investing self-help videos. Really is simple, especially if you don't like believe me, you can go check out Stephen Graham. He does a really good job of explaining this, but it's literally just like dollar cost averaging into the S&P 500. It's like a basket, it's like an ETF with one of your favorite third partiers. Vanguard offers the VOO. I am no financial expert or anything like that. That's just something I personally do, and I've seen that other people have advocated for that as well. But at the very least, invest in something. And even if it is in favorite companies that you like when I first got started, that's how I did it. I invested in the banks because I figured you gotta pay the bank regardless. People gotta pay the mortgages. So I thought like, all right, like we'll go with the banks. Canadian banks are backed up by the Canadian government, so it's a little bit safer. I know that's not the case in America. I bought things that I like I bought Apple and I bought Google because I make YouTube videos. Google is me boss. But just getting started and doing something is a lot better, because I think that at the end of the day, I personally think money is very emotional, and I think that sometimes it's hard to see progress in the beginning. Like the first decade of investing, I had nothing to show for it. Like it was so like the gains were so small. I remember I was making like $30 a month. But once you hit a certain threshold, like it's the gains just are getting bigger and bigger. Like it's obscene. Like takes a long time and nothing, it like makes up for it in the later half. And I think that Warren Buffett is a good example of that. His wealth building became really exponential in the later years. So it is really hard to give the advice to invest and save when you won't see returns for a really long time. Like unless you're really aggressive in the beginning, you really don't start seeing it till like way later. So I get why people always rag on the S&P 500 as like, I will become a millionaire when I'm 85. Like who would want that? I used to think that. That's why I tried so many things, like trying businesses, trying this, trying that, because I was like, yeah, I don't wanna play the long game. I don't wanna wait till I'm 85 to become a millionaire. Like I want it now. But the thing about it is definitely, and obviously there's no guaranteed return, but it's definitely a lot more stress-free and a lot more reliable than running your own business. I think there's a stat where a certain number of businesses don't make it. Most businesses don't make it past, I think it's like the first couple, like 5 years or something like that. But the S&P 500 it's boring, but it's stable. You buy the stock and you forget about it. You just buy and hold, diamond hands the whole way through. This sounds like I'm pushing stocks upon people or like the S&P 500. Like I'm not. I'm just giving you guys the information that this is what research and historical returns have provided, in hopes that this could kind of encourage you to buy something, buy stocks, get interested and get motivated into it, because it's life-changing, guys. Once you start seeing the money and the financial security that comes with being good with your money, it is absolutely life-changing. I think maybe that's what it is. Like I'll just speak from personal experience. It has come night and day when like I was stressed about money in my earlier years, like in my early 20s and my late teens when I was really bad with money versus what it's like now. It's just like, and I probably could still be really bad with money. In all of these years, I could have just kept buying this, that, and the third and never got good with my money. But I'm really happy with where I am, and I would love that for my Cobra babies. So if this is your sign, start reading a little bit about investing. Do your research. Start somewhere, because the biggest builder of wealth is actually time. If you don't believe me, go get one of those like investor calculators and play around with the numbers and play around with the years. You can actually invest less, and if you have more time, you actually get a bigger return. It's like, it's absolutely magic. It's literally like what Einstein said, the magic of compounding interest. He who understands it earns it, he who doesn't loses it. So he's a smart man and I'm not, so I'm gonna listen to him. Okay, coming in at number 5, running a business is not always the only way to build wealth. Sometimes just being responsible with your 9 to 5 will do the trick. And the reason that I say this is because Mr. Money Mustache did that. He's a really great example of somebody who built wealth with just like a regular job. I don't know if you would necessarily argue, you know, an engineer in the 90s is regular, definitely on the higher end. But according to the Millionaire Next Door, the average income of most millionaires was actually $50K a year. So he's not even an anomaly. He's like right in there with everyone else. And actually most people who become millionaires are just like regular people. It's like teachers, engineers, like plumbers, just like regular schmoes. That's why it's called the Millionaire Next Door. Like you could have a millionaire living next to you and you wouldn't even know it because of the lifestyle principles that they implement. And obviously some people are disgusted by the intense level of frugality that a lot of people do to achieve millionaire status. And if that is you, that's fine. Go run a business. I've watched countless podcasts. There's actually one that I watched. I'll put it here. I think his name is Calloway, and he was talking about how like compared to him and his friend, it's like he suffered so unnecessarily compared to his friend who was just like diligent and just invested in the S&P 500. They kind of arrived at similar places, but Calloway having to like grind like crazy is like, in hindsight, it wasn't worth it. And these are his words, not mine. So you guys can definitely go check out the video, the full video. I think it's like an hour long. It's an interview, and you can hear what he has to say on somebody who is kind of like an Alex Hormozy that like run their own business. And it's true, there are many paths to wealth. Like if you don't like the frugality of just regularly saving in your 9 to 5, you could maybe consider doing a business. But I want to mention that running a business isn't the only way to build wealth. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm no mogul, I'm no business mogul, so I'm just gonna blow my money. Like, what's an extra 500? What's an extra 1,000 here or there? It's like, it's not gonna push the dial. Every dollar counts. Like, there's a good quote by Charlie Munger: do what you have to, cut coupons in order to get yourself to the first 100K. Like, the compounding really takes off at 100K, and it's like, it will take a really long time to get to 100K, but once you pass that threshold of 100K, like, the ball just starts getting rolling. So I think that the bottom line that I'm trying to say is, I think at the end of the day, it's just being intentional with your money. And I think keeping some money for yourself at the end of the day, because like, you pay everybody else, like, you work really hard for your money, and you pay the mortgage, you pay the kids' schooling, you pay for groceries, you pay for the phone bill, you pay for your gas, you pay for your car note, you pay for all of these things, and yet somehow the one who deserves it the most is not getting any. I don't know, it just seems like not really great forward thinking logic. You deserve to keep a part of the money that you have and build some wealth up for yourself. So I think sometimes at the end of the day, it's just a change in perspective. Believing that you can be good with money, I think, is the first step, because I think that until you believe that you can be good with money, none of this would make any sense. Like, and myself included, I used to think like, oh, wealth building is something that rich people do, but like, I could never. But knowing that actually, if you just look at the stats, with billionaires being the 1% of the 1%, so like, they don't even count, statistically speaking. Most rich people are just regular schmegular people who made different decisions. You just think like, well, okay, then that could be me. And obviously a lot of people, and even in the book, in the Millionaire Next Door, it talked about how like, people are like, ew, like, they interviewed what's called Henrys, which is like high income earners not yet rich. They were kind of disgusted by the frugality of the millionaires. They're like, why would you want to live like that? Like, I just want to enjoy my life and enjoy my money. And that's fine. Enjoy it. No one's saying that you have to. I just think that there could be like a middle of the road. Maybe don't be so frugal as the Millionaires Next Door, but I don't think being stupid with your money like a Henry, trying to emulate the truly rich, is a smart way to do things. Like, it just seems like just straight up stupidity. Now, I'm not saying don't have nice things. I think you should have nice things, but thinking like there's no point to wealth building, so I'm not even gonna bother, it's just kind of dumb, because it's just like, because I think that until you get off the hamster wheel of consumerism, it is really hard to kind of understand the joy that comes from wealth building. Because shopping is fun. Shopping is so fun. Shopping is definitely a dopamine kick because humans are tribe animals. We are hardwired to hoard. So accumulating material possessions is hardwired into us for survival. So it is really hard to overcome and override that human desire. But at the same time, if you can get past that and understand that having money in the bank, while money is, just paper or just numbers in the bank, if you've ever been in an emergency, nothing has ever covered your ass the way that having money in the bank does. So I hope that you guys could have enjoyed this personal finance video. I really just wanted to put this out in hopes that it could help somebody else out, because I think that I'm really happy with where I am, and I will definitely love that for my Cobra babies. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.